Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name's Calvin and you join me on arguably my worst job I've ever done, to be honest. And I've done some pretty crappy jobs, but this one here was just full of heartbreak and disappointment. It started off simple enough. It was just welding together 3 full sheets of 5mm thick alley sheets basically. Yeah, so when I spoke to the client, they sent me photos and I visited the job. Everything seemed simple enough. Now, I don't do a lot of alley welding. Had I got the experience with alley, I would have known how much of a bullshit job this was going to be. So, essentially, just welding up three full sheets together. My idea was to die grind it, cut it, do whatever I need to do to put a prep, MIG weld it, and then sand it down. So that's what I proceeded to do on the first one. Now I'm using my fine die grinder, putting a nice little prep on it, but here is where things started to go badly. The tables were attached to the frame with glue, resin, epoxy, all sorts of nastiness. Now, I asked them if they could clean it out the best they could. Essentially, they took off the surface level of it, but I did not know the world of hurt that was underneath the table. And yeah, this is where my experience really messed me up. Had I known that the amount of epoxy and resin that was left underneath the table, not necessarily in the crack, but just in the vicinity of the weld that I'm about to do, I would have turned this job down or asked them to just, get new sheets or do something. So, what essentially was happening as I was welding, all of them contaminants was coming through the weld. The machines that I had, I realize now I need to invest in much more powerful machines. In the background you see my Kempe MIG welder, so I was going to use the Kempe to just be a MIG welder basically, just MIG alley weld. Should come out nice. No chance on this job. It took me a little bit to dial it in. You don't really see the results of the MIG welder because once I started to weld I realized what type of job it was, and my filming priorities just I was not caring about filming anymore. I just wanted to get the job done. So yeah, the MIG let me down. It was so much contamination was underneath the table and coming through the table that it was resisting to weld. It was resisting to weld. It couldn't be done. I tried my hardest to. I butchered my way through the alley welded. Now this here is one of my experience mistakes. This table is part of a vacuum forming table. So what they do, they put a sheet of plastic over the top of it with some double-sided tape on the edges, and they pull a -1 bar vacuum on it with a sheet of plastic over the top. And I think it had to have something like 0.005 something bar droppage over 15 minutes. It was a silly small percentage of drop. And if you've ever welded alley, there's always porosity holes and kind of contaminants coming through. And yeah, if you look at this, see how clean it looks? Not even close to being clean enough. Die grinder, ground it, acetone, wire brush, didn't work. But yeah, essentially pinholes in my welds of trapped air, porosity, gases coming through was enough to fail the welds. So it couldn't hold a vacuum, and it needed to hold a vacuum. This job was essential. The whole point of me coming here was to weld it together so it can hold a vacuum as well as have it perfectly flat. So you can see me here trying to dial in the machine, and And I'm like, oh no, what's going on? Look, there's me pausing, just trying to analyze. Nothing's working, everything's bad. I'm going deeper to see if I could get through the contamination. It was a ball ache. That one's, I welded that one over there. This is the second one. Now I took my time and I went at it a little bit differently, and you can see the contamination trapped under the table. Now, because they put a piece of steel bridging across to support the edges, they had put the edge, they'd put the lips of the two of them perfectly in line with the steel rather than overhanging. So everything was essentially trapped underneath there with silicone sealer all the way around it, so no gases was escaping out of it or anything. So yeah, again, my experience was causing me issues. Now I'm using my thermal arc AC/DC 202 TIG welder. This was problems in its own. So I was preheating it with a bit of MAP gas, buckling the material, and now you can hear it delaminating from underneath. And then I'm TIG welding it 160 amps, not doing no damage to this. It's the travel speed is stupendously slow. If I go to 170, now I'm thermal overloading my extension lead. If I go above that, I believe my machine has a 100% duty cycle of only 90 amps. What use is that? So on big jobs like this, I've realized I need to get a 3-phase machine, but I can't afford a 3-phase machine trying to just survive. But that's another story for another day. So this was at the start when nothing's been tested. So I've MIG'd one side, that was a bit crap. Now I've come here and I'm TIG welding the other side. I'm using a belt sander and I'm progressively going from 40 grit, 80, 100, 120, and I've worked my way in every step all the way up to 400, which is on the orbital sander now. Nice result. Doesn't hold a vacuum. Somewhere along them lines are the most tiniest of pinholes, and I mean, so the first day completely failed. All 4 of them completely failed. So the second day I went back there and I had help this time, and I was able to get one table, so 2 of them to pass. But this table you're looking at right now was the worst of it. At least on the other table it had a fresh sheet of alley, but again, my experience, I didn't put the prep in. So foul to prepare to foul situation. But you can see the vacuum forming situation right there. So I learned a lot on this job, and I reached out to some people who are good at this, and they gave me some pointers. And essentially they was saying they would have had someone in front tracing a bit of preheating in front of me, and then just turning up the wave balance and just kind of just getting every single bit of porosity, nastiness out of it. But again, the power supply that I had, the machine just couldn't hack doing that. The only saving grace for this job is they was able to put tape over the seal after and get a solid purge, a solid vacuum with the tape. So at the end of the day, everything worked out. They had a table that no longer had a seam that was visible in the workpiece once it was done. And yeah, I just wish I could have just, come there, smashed it out and made everyone happy. But it worked out in the end. But yes, so just to quickly break down when I mean it's the worst job, I charged them £1,200 to do them, £600 each table. Now if I pull up my calculator, £1,200 times 0.75, which basically is taking off the 25% that I pay in corporation tax, that leaves me 900. Now for this job here, which is why I charge a little bit more, I needed to buy a orbital sander. That was 130 for the orbital sander. The belt sander was 50, and then I bought another £100 worth of consumables, the sanding pads and stuff. So that's minus another 100. I'm left with £620. Divide that by 2. I had to come there 2 days, so that's £310 a day that I made essentially, which if I'd done it in one day, 620 would have been fine. It would have covered all of the gases and the this and the that. It would have covered it all, even my fuel, my travel. So essentially, I never lost money, but I didn't quite bank the way I should have. So lessons learned. In future, anytime I do anything like this, especially with Ali, I'm just going to charge a premium, because it's a lot more work than stainless. If say that was like a 5mm sheet of stainless, in and out, not a problem. That would not have been even the smallest consideration of a worry. But because it's Ali, yeah, it's a whole different story. But let me know what you think about this. Tell me your stories or whatnot in the comments below. I'm signing out. Thanks for watching, and I will see you lot in the next video.